polarized thinking is, you see that everywhere. You'll hear people that are using terms like always, never, everyone, everybody, those kinds of terms. And it's like there's no gray area. It's either good or bad. So in polarized thinking, we're very often operating in extremes. And the way to get out of polarized thinking, especially it's about yourself too, is, and here's where you, if you have a partner, they can help you with it. When they hear you say, you know what, I never ever, and they can stop you right there. And then you pull back, and then it might change to something like this. 30% of the time I don't do that effectively, but 70% of the time I do. So we start thinking in terms of pie charts and continuums. They say, I never can remember to pay my bills. Really? Never? You mean you've never ever paid a bill? Well, what percentage of the time do I pay my bill? Well, about 90% of the time I pay my bills, maybe 10% it slips through. So when you hear those overgeneralizations, it might be helpful for you to think in terms of percentages. I never do this. I never do my exercise. I never pay attention, So using percentages can help you change that. Tunnel vision, that's the one where you just focus on one aspect of a situation. You could go to a party, you could meet 100 people, and they're all happier than hell to meet you, and they're slapping you in the back, and wow, I'm really happy to meet you. And you might have one person there, just one, that kind of rejects you. What you focus on at the end of that party is that one person that rejected you, perhaps. So broadening and looking at things more broadly rather than focusing on just one aspect of an event. This was kind of bizarre that one day I was working with my best counselor, this was many years ago, and he said, well, today we're not going to talk about bad things that happened in Vietnam. We're going to talk about the good things. And I was kind of taken back, and I went, were you in a different Vietnam than I was? There was nothing good in there. And he said, no. Just think about it for a while. Think of one good memory you had from Vietnam. And I thought about this time, we were in a jungle area, and all of a sudden there was a flock of parrots that took off and flew up through the canopy. And the sun was shining through the canopy, and it would hit those parrots, and they looked like jewels flying up in the air. I just stopped dead and stared at it. Once I started doing that, I started thinking about all the good times I had, and the camaraderie and the laughter. I mean, some of it was kind of bizarre, kind of laughing at, somebody got shot in the butt. It was, but I mean, so if we start to expand our vision of things, we may start finding the good things rather than focusing on the negative. Somebody told me one time, the reason that we focus so much on the negative rather than the positive is the negative is louder. It's much louder. We just, and it resonates with us. But being able to shift that focus on the good time. There was a time in my life, Archie, don't listen to this, but there was a time of my life that I was in jail, actually in jail. Not for very long, but I was in jail. And I thought about that, and I thought, that was a little bit like being in the Army again, because we're in a bullpen and we're all joking and talking and stuff like that. So when you look at almost any event, you can find some positive aspects of it instead of just totally focusing on the negative. Some others that I'd like you to consider, just think about them. Consider getting rid of the concept of deserve. Just think about that. I've sat in AA meetings with people that said, I deserve to be treated with respect. I deserve my boss to take me into, I deserve. And I thought, if there was any justice at all, most of us in here would be shot. but they deserve this. All right. So here's my thought. These are just my thoughts. There's no studies on it or anything. But for a concept to be valid, I think it needs to be worked both ways. Does it not? So if I deserve the good stuff, did I deserve the bad stuff? So we kind of get ourselves in a trap with that term, I think. So I think that it also implies, not in a legal sense, Archie, but it also implies that there's some kind of cosmic justice, that there's some mystical entity that's keeping score. You're going, okay, Ray did a good thing. All right. He deserves some good stuff. Oh, crap. He did some bad things. Well, now he deserves some bad stuff. So it's just a concept I would ask you to think about, not necessarily adopt it. But when you hear somebody say, I deserve this, deserve, I think is pretty close to the same thing as entitled, right? I'm entitled. And the other part of it is, if we deserve something, like if your thoughts are, I deserve your respect, and I give it to you, are you grateful for it? I mean, are we grateful for the things that we truly believe we deserve? So I would like you to just think about it, mull it over in your mind, and just consider it. I've pretty well gotten rid of that totally out of my thinking, because I don't want to think that there is some mystical, magical entity that's keeping score. There is no cosmic justice. As a matter of fact, for many of us, well, maybe not any of you, but for many of the people I know, they ought to wear a t-shirt that says, thank God there's no justice. Because if there was, they've been slapped down pretty hard. All right. Now, the other one I want to talk about before I wrap this up is a couple of more. One of them is getting rid of command language. That one is really a tough one, and I still wrestle with that. And I find myself saying things like, oh yeah, I got to go get the mail. I don't got to get the mail. I'm a full-grown adult. I don't have to do anything. But I'm commanding myself to do things. You ought to see me when I command myself to clean the house. You ought to see the happy expression on my face as I'm scrubbing the floor. So even though we may command ourselves to do things and continue to command ourselves until we finally give in, we're not generally doing it with a happy heart. Now, if I say, I've got to go to the dentist, I may not even go. It's like, so I would ask you to give some thought to command language too. Now, the other thing about command language, I think it has the potential to rob us of self-appreciation. Think about this. Let's say that it's your child's birthday, and your thought is, oh yeah, well, I have to send out birthday cards. I've got to decorate the house. I've got to make a cake. I have to get them a present. And you do all of those things. What does that say about you? Well, not much, except that you're a good soldier and you're good at following orders. But what does it say about you if you choose to do all those things? Something altogether different. I'm choosing to do this for my child. I'm choosing to make out I'm choosing. So I think that when we use command language on ourselves, it has the potential of robbing us of self-appreciation. All right. So that's one I would ask you to give some thought to. I think the only other one I have, and then I'll wrap this up, is can't. Think about what we can't do. We can't breathe underwater. We can't survive without food. We can't survive without oxygen. But when we're saying, I can't do this, or I can't stand it, the limbic system hears that as an emergency, like it's a life or death thing. So I suggest people really give some thought, some consideration to being very careful about using the word can't to describe something that doesn't kill us. We can say, I don't want to. We can say, I'm unwilling to do. But if we say can't, again, we're distorting reality. So with that.
Well, I'm going to give an example, Ray, if that's okay.
Okay, please.
Can't.
Sure.
So soon after my first husband died, I live out in the forest where there is, I'm off the grid. I have hydroelectric, I have solar as well. One night, I got home from working in child welfare. It is very dark and it's starting to rain and then it starts to snow. And I go out and you turn on the water and I check on the hydro and the electric. And this is things that my son would do or my first husband would do. And I'm doing this in the cold and it's freezing. And all of a sudden I realized the water's not working at all. I walk up the path. So and Charlie will relate to this. She's walked on my land. And I realized that a bear has taken a big chunk out of the water line. I could see bear holes and there's water spraying everywhere. And remember this is cold, it's dark. I didn't have a headlamp, so I'm holding the flashlight in my mouth. As I'm walking up the hill, I've got my tools. I go back down, I realize I need more tools. So I'm getting something to cut the water line. I'm getting a blowtorch and other things. Of course, I'm walking up the hill and I'm thinking, well, I'll say, excuse my language, but this is exactly what I said. God damn it, Ray. God damn it, Bruce. Why did you die? Why did you die? I'm stuck fixing a water line from a bear. I can't do this. I can't do this. Oh, this is so exhausting. And I'm crying and I'm cutting it and I'm putting the new things on and water's everywhere. Well, I actually did get this pipe cut apart in the freezing cold in the snow, and I put the blowtorch to make it so it would be a little easier to put together, and I got it together. And what I said to myself, because I thought, oh my gosh, I was walking up there saying I can't do it, my stomach was upset, I'm just, and then I start laughing. I'm dripping wet, looking like a drowned rat, and I start laughing, and I realized, oh my gosh, it's not that I couldn't do it, it's that I didn't have the skills to do it. And now I do. And I walk down the hill like a drowned rat. I call up my son, because I actually had a telephone. One of these days I'll tell you about what it was like to live without electricity and without telephone. But I called up my son, and then I called up Ray, and I said, I fixed the water line. I did this. I felt effective. And I thought about that later when I had to do so many other things that I never expected to do, such as fixing the propane water heater, having to get the valves fixed out. And instead of saying, I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, I said to myself, instead of can't, I say, I don't have the skills yet to do this. I'm not as effective as what I did. I need to learn something else. It's be in my best interest. And of course, I'm saying this by myself with my dog barking along, but I'm saying it out loud to remind myself. And all it did, instead of feeling frustrated and worried, I'm going, oh, well, I'm not effective now, but in the future I will be. And it was an incredibly good feeling. So I totally agree, Ray. Get rid of can't and say more effective. Over to you, dear.
Well, I have a story I want to end on here because I have the secret of happiness. Anybody like to have it? I have the secret of happiness. I'll share it with you. Unfortunately for you, you have to listen to a little bit of a story. I learned this from my best counselor. I came in to see him one day. This was years ago in Albuquerque. And he looked at me and he said, Ray, you don't look very happy. And I said, I can't remember the last time I was happy. And he said, I have the secret of happiness. And I said, well, give it to me. And he said, no, you have to earn it. I got it. So I said, okay, what do I have to do? And he said, go home and think about the happiest period of time in your life. And you might do this right now if you want to. Not an event like graduating from college or getting out of the army or the birth of your children or anything like that. But a period of time, a significant block of time. So I said, all right, I'll do it. So I went home, I thought about it for a week, came back the next day. He said, well, did you get it? And I said, yeah, you want me to tell you about it? And he said, no. He said, I want you to tell me what the underlying factor was during that period of time that brought you to happiness. And I went, well, just tell me. He said, nope, go home and think about it. So I did. Came back and I said, tell me now or I'll kill you. I mean, there's 2 weeks of this, this is enough. And he said, the secret of happiness is to be effective. You cannot strive for happiness because happiness is a byproduct of being effective. So for whatever reasons during that period of time, you were the most effective. And I thought about it and I thought, he was right. And Sean argued with me about it one time. And then she told me the story about that she just told you. And I said, and when you finished it, were you happy? And she said, yes. And I said, so effectiveness equals happiness. Happiness is a byproduct of being effective. The more effective you are in emotional management, the happier you're going to be. The more effective you've ever been in your life is probably when you were the most effective. So now you have the secret of happiness and spread it around. And think about it, the times in your life when you were the happiest, not the event, but the period of time in your life when you were the most happy and you were the most effective. Now, knowing that during periods of unhappiness, you can think, okay, I'm not being effective as I might be in what critical areas. Maybe I'm not being as effective in my relationship. Maybe I'm not being as effective as my parenting. Maybe I'm not being as effective as in my job as what I'd like to be. When you start looking at ways of becoming more effective and giving up ways of being happier, I think the happiness will just be there. That's my final words. So I think
I will give you a little additional small story to that. It is the idea of being focusing on your effectiveness. Now, one of the challenges of being an overachiever in work and other things in life and volunteering for everything is we measure our effectiveness by the complete project. So I turn this report in, I feel really effective. But it was like an end product. I was effective at the end. And someone had said to me, well, you were pretty effective at getting all the material together. You were really effective at calling up all of the attorneys and the foster parents. Were you pretty effective at researching and deciding? And I thought, wow, I had all of these pieces of effectiveness. So one of the things that I've been looking at now as I'm getting older and things are different, I mean, they're just different in this time, is that I'm consciously looking at the times when I'm effective. The other day, the most effective thing I did in the morning is I got up and I made my bed. And I actually consciously stood at the end of it and I said, I'm effective. I made my bed. It looked really good and allowed me to stop and feel a sense of effective during a time period I knew that was going to be a challenge. And so creating your sense of effectiveness and being aware of it and grateful for it is a wonderful way for me to have happiness.